My ex-husband's family reunion was held every summer at his parents' lake house in upstate New York, and even though the divorce had been finalized 8 months earlier, his mother called me personally to make sure I was coming. "You're still family," she said, and I believed her. I shouldn't have. I showed up in a sundress I'd bought on clearance at Target. $9, pale yellow with small white flowers, the kind of dress that's easy to wash and doesn't wrinkle in a car. I'd driven 3 hours from my apartment in Albany, a studio I could just barely afford on my salary as a middle school art teacher. My ex, I'll call him my ex because saying his name still costs me something, had remarried 6 months after our divorce was finalized. 6 months. We had been together for 7 years. His new wife was standing on the dock when I pulled up. She was wearing a white linen dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. She looked at me walking across the lawn, and I watched her eyes travel from my sandals up to my clearance rack sundress, and she smiled the kind of smile that isn't really a smile at all. "I'm so glad you could make it," she said. "My husband talks about you sometimes. He says you were always very practical." She said practical the way some people say unfortunate. I smiled back. I said, "That's kind of him." I found a seat at one of the picnic tables near the water and told myself I was fine. I had promised my therapist I would stop shrinking in rooms where I deserved to take up space. I had promised myself I would stop letting people rewrite the story of my own life while I sat quietly and let them. But then her sister walked over, a woman I had never met, loud earrings, louder laugh, looked at my dress and said right in front of 4 other people, "Oh, is that from Target? I think my housekeeper has that same one." The table went quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then everyone laughed. "I want to tell you," I said something sharp and perfect. "I want to tell you," I stood up and walked away with my chin up and my shoulders back. But the truth is I felt my face go hot, and I picked up my lemonade and pretended to be very interested in the label. And I sat there while the moment passed because I didn't know what else to do. What I did not know, what none of them knew, was that a woman named Rosalind had been watching the whole thing from across the lawn. Rosalind was my ex-husband's aunt, his father's older sister. She was 72 years old, had been a federal tax attorney for 30 years before she retired, and she had the kind of stillness that comes from spending decades in rooms where everyone else was louder and wronger than her. She and I had gotten close during my marriage, the way you sometimes get close to someone in a family that isn't quite your own, borrowing their steadiness because yours hasn't grown in yet. She came and sat beside me after the sister walked away. She didn't say anything for a minute. She just looked out at the water. Then she said, "You know, I wore a second-hand blazer to my bar exam results party. A man at the party told me it looked like something his secretary would wear." She paused. "He ended up in tax fraud litigation 12 years later. I was the opposing counsel." I looked at her. She looked back at me and said very quietly, "Finish your lemonade. I need to show you something." What Rosalind showed me was a set of documents she had been carrying in her bag since she arrived that morning. We sat in the sunroom while the party went on outside, and she laid the papers on the coffee table between us and explained them slowly, the way she used to explain things when I first joined the family, and felt like everyone else was speaking a language I hadn't learned yet. The short version was this. My ex-husband and I had opened a small business together 4 years into our marriage. A custom furniture workshop. He did the carpentry, I handled design, client relations, and the books. We called it Millward & Co., which was my last name at the time. When we divorced, he took the business. That was the agreement. I walked away from it in exchange for him assuming our shared debt and releasing me from the lease on our apartment, which I couldn't afford on my own. I thought I was being practical. I thought I was being fair. What I did not know was that 6 weeks before he filed for divorce, he had taken out a $40,000 business loan against the company, using contracts I had signed years earlier as leverage, including my signature on the original business registration. He had also transferred 2 of our largest wholesale clients to a new LLC he had registered quietly in his new wife's name. The new LLC was called Hartwell Interiors. Hartwell was her maiden name. Rosalind had found out because she was meticulous about family finances the way some people are meticulous about their health. Not out of suspicion, just out of habit, the discipline of a long career. She had been helping my ex's father with his estate planning, and in reviewing connected entities, she had found Hartwell Interiors. She had noticed my signature on documents that predated the divorce. She had, in the careful and thorough way of a woman who had spent 30 years doing exactly this, pulled the thread. "He used your signature," she said, "on the original registration to qualify for that loan after you were already separated." I stared at the documents. "That's fraud," I said. "Yes," she said, "it is." I want to tell you I felt some rush of triumph in that moment. But what I actually felt was a specific kind of grief. The grief of realizing the person you thought you knew had been capable of something like this. That the story you'd been telling yourself about an amicable split and 2 reasonable adults moving on had never been the real story at all. I took a breath. I asked Rosalind what she thought I should do. She folded her hands on her knee and said, "I think you should talk to an attorney. And I think you should do it before the end of this weekend because the statute of limitations on civil fraud in New York is 6 years and this is year 3. She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. "She was my associate for 9 years, she said. She's very good. She already knows the situation. I took the liberty of sending her the documents this morning." I looked at the card for a long time. Outside the window, I could hear my ex's new wife laughing at something, the same laugh she'd used when her sister made the crack about my dress. I put the card in my pocket. Here is what I need you to understand about the next 8 months. I did not blow anything up. I did not make a scene at that reunion. I walked back out to the party. I ate a hot dog. I talked to my ex's father about his garden, and I said goodbye to everyone politely when I left at 4 o'clock. I drove home with Rosalind's attorney's card sitting in the cup holder next to my sunglasses. On Monday morning, I called the attorney. Her name was Miss Tran, and she was exactly as good as Rosalind had promised. What followed was 8 months of quiet, careful, deliberate work. Miss Tran filed a civil fraud claim citing the unauthorized use of my signature on the loan documentation. She also identified a clause in our original business partnership agreement, one I had drafted actually years earlier because I was practical, because I kept good records, that entitled me to a percentage of revenue from any clients acquired during the partnership period, for a period of 3 years following dissolution, if those clients were transferred to a successor entity without my written consent. Hartwell Interiors had 2 of those clients. Both were billing over $200,000 a year. I also filed a complaint with the New York State Department of Financial Services regarding the fraudulent loan application. That process was slower and less certain, but Miss Tran felt it was worth pursuing. I didn't tell anyone what was happening, not my friends, not my sister, not my mother. I went to work every day and taught 7th graders how to use watercolors, and I came home to my studio apartment and I ate dinner and I watched television and I waited. During those 8 months, my ex's new wife posted photographs of their renovated kitchen on Instagram. She posted a photo from a trip they took to Sedona. She posted a video of herself unboxing furniture from Hartwell Interiors' new catalog, furniture that had been built in the workshop my hands had helped build, using designs I had contributed to, sold to clients I had cultivated and kept. I watched all of it. I did not comment. I did not text my ex. I did not say a single word to anyone in that family except Rosalind, who checked in once a month with the composed patience of someone who had done this kind of waiting many times before. Slow is fine, she told me. Slow is thorough. The call came on a Tuesday in March when I was sitting in my car in the school parking lot eating a granola bar before first period. Miss Tran told me the other party had agreed to settle. My ex and his wife, facing the fraud documentation and the partnership clause and the DFS complaint, which had it turned out triggered a secondary review of the loan, had decided not to go to court. The settlement was $67,000. It covered the loan revenue I was owed, my share of the client transfer fees, and a negotiated amount for the unauthorized use of my signature. It also required them to formally remove my name from all historical business documents going forward and issue a corrected filing with the state, Ms. Tran said in the measured tone she always used. This is a reasonable outcome. I want you to know that if you had gone to trial, you might have gotten more and you might have gotten less. But this is clean. This is real. This is yours. I sat in my car in the school parking lot and I cried for about 4 minutes. Then I wiped my face, checked my mascara in the rearview mirror, and went in to teach 7th grade. I found out about the reunion post by accident. My ex's cousin, someone I had stayed friendly with who had no idea any of this was happening, texted me a screenshot of a family group chat. My ex had posted a message saying that this year's reunion would be relocated because his parents were selling the lake house. The message said the sale was necessary for a number of financial reasons and that he and his wife were navigating some changes. His new wife had replied with a single emoji, a small yellow face with its mouth pressed flat. The cousin texted me, "Are you okay? Did you know about this?" I texted back, "I'm good. Really good, actually." I don't know exactly what the DFS review turned up in their secondary audit or how much of the loan complications affected their broader financial picture. Ms. Tran had advised me not to ask questions I didn't need the answers to. What I know is that Hartwell Interiors went quiet on social media around the same time. No new posts, no new catalog, just a pinned photo of a kitchen backsplash and then nothing. The thing about my $9 Target dress is that I still have it. I wore it again last July to a barbecue at my friend's place in Hudson. I got 2 compliments on it. One from my friend's neighbor who asked where I'd gotten it, and one from a man I ended up talking to for the rest of the afternoon. A high school history teacher from Rhinebeck, thoughtful and a little funny and genuinely interested in what I had to say. We have been dating for 6 months now. He has never once asked me what something cost before deciding if it was worth his time. I think about that reunion sometimes. I think about sitting at that picnic table with my face burning while a woman I'd never met made a joke at my expense and everyone laughed and I looked at my lemonade and said nothing. I think about Rosalind crossing the lawn in her sensible shoes with a folder of documents in her bag, sitting down beside me looking out at the water. I think about what it means that she saw something worth defending when I had almost forgotten to defend it myself. People always think the revenge is the $67,000, and I won't pretend the money didn't matter. It paid off my car, covered 3 months of therapy, and let me take my students on the art museum trip I'd been trying to fundraise for since September. But the real thing, the thing I carry with me, is the 8 months of quiet. The 8 months of going to work and eating granola bars and watching their Instagram and saying nothing, while Miss Tran pulled threads and Rosalind waited, and I slowly remembered that being practical isn't something to be ashamed of. It's actually the most powerful thing in the room. It just doesn't always look that way from the outside.